All right, well, welcome to the Sports Guys. This is our weekend recap for July 7th, 2025. We're calling it NBA Reloaded. We have a lot of NBA content to come to you with this particular show. How you doing, Robbie?
Doing great. Nice to be back on here and back in my house. We had a great trip to Norway, but it does feel good to be back in the swing of things. And I still have a week off from work, so I'm loving it. And good. Things are good.
The last time we came to you guys with a weekend recap, we actually were doing it from Bergen, Norway, from a hotel. So we did the best we could, but it's really good to be back in our home studios, like you said, back in our home beds and kind of getting settled into our routines again.
Mm-hmm.
And then we just released also a couple days ago the photo and video journey from our Norway trip, just to tease our big podcast coming later this week, where we're going to talk about Norway and really go into the full trip with you guys. So definitely look for that. So, Robbie, any big themes coming for you out of the NBA draft, out of the NBA offseason? There's just a lot to talk about in that area.
I guess the big one is Dallas looks like they're making moves to really solidify their run. Most other teams seem to be trying to improve, and I think a lot of teams did get better.
What's really
it was an okay draft, I think. It was decent.
It was good. Deep. It was pretty deep. There was a lot of teams that got better, I think. Interestingly enough, the West has been better than the East for a long time in the NBA, and it's still true, and it's getting even more bigger disparity, I think. You've got, of course, OKC just won the championship. The Timberwolves are looking like a championship-level team.
Yeah.
The Denver Nuggets have probably had the best offseason of everybody. They've added a bunch of big pieces. They had another 7-footer, and they had another big-time shooting guard. And so the Nuggets look like they're making a major move to try to get back into first place in the West. Of course, also on that side of the ball, you've got Golden State Warriors that are trying to make their final run. They've been adding some pieces. And then, of course, like you said, Dallas. Dallas now has 3 former number 1 picks and the new number 1 pick. They have 4 number 1 picks on the same roster. So, and they're also trying to lure LeBron James to come over for 1 season to finish out his career. So the West just looks absolutely stacked and getting worse for teams that are on the lower part of that run, which includes the Lakers, by the way. Their new ownership is really thinking that they're not a championship level team right now and that they need to think about rebuilding. So
I'll tell you one thing that jumped out at me was it was pretty shocking looking at how young all the players were that were drafted. I mean, almost all of them were 19 years old.
Yeah.
And that jumped out at me. I mean, to me, you're starting to see in other sports people staying longer, 5th year, 6th year, as much eligibility as they can wring out of it. And that's not happening in basketball,
Did you notice also fewer foreign players? There was a lot.
Yeah, a little bit fewer foreign players. And but even when they went foreign players, they were still young. There were only a tiny handful of players that were over 20. And to me, that's surprising because in the past, you have these teams that go on these deep tournament runs with mostly seniors, and those guys get drafted in the first 2 rounds, and they kind of, you're not drafting entirely on potential. You want to see some track records. So I found it very interesting how young this draft was.
It's interesting that they were so young and that there was fewer foreign players. Those are the 2 trends I noticed.
Yeah.
But I do think that's going to change with NIL. I think that you'll see people stay in school longer, both in basketball and football.
Well, that's what I'm saying. I would have thought this draft would have been that way, stay in longer, keep getting your NIL, work on your degree, keep putting tape on, film, plays on film so that you have a resume.
I mean, Cooper made $29 million his first year at Duke. He can't make that in the NBA.
Right.
I agree with you. That is surprising, but I do think that'll change. I think slowly over time, you're going to see.
I'm not sure. Basketball might be the exception.
Maybe.
For various reasons. Your shelf life, you want to get started as early as you can. You're not facing, grown NFL men like, in the past, one and dones and people come straight out of high school is very, very possible. You couldn't do that in most other sports.
You did notice, though, that the Johnny Brooms and the Hunter Dickinsons and the big men stay longer because they take longer to develop.
Yeah.
And so even in that situation, the guys who did stay till senior year usually are the big men.
No, I agree.
Yeah.
But there were plenty of 19-year-old 7'1" from, Israel or whatever. So I was surprised at the age of this draft.
Another thing I realized looking at the first and second round is how few players we know anymore. Most of these guys, two of the top three picks are from Rutgers. Like nobody watches Rutgers. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
those NBA scouts, they really have to earn their money because you're looking at talent evaluators, and clearly they've got all the information we don't. But I looked down through the first round, and I knew maybe 6 or 7 out of the 32. And so you're having a situation in the NBA where they're coming into the league and they haven't built the brand that Cooper Flag has. Most of these guys are completely unknowns, rarely on TV. So that's a different situation. In the NFL, I know
Well, that's what I'm saying.
32 or 32.
Most of the other sports behave differently than this. Your goal is to stay in college as long as you can, build up as much brand and tape on yourself that you can, and then make the leap when you're pretty secure.
That's right.
And NBA, it's go when you're 18 or 19.
True.
And risk it all.
That's right.
Don't burn any eligibility.
I do think it was a deep draft. A lot of teams feel like they got better. Even my Charlotte Hornets and some of the lower end teams on the East side feel like they did improve. My Hornets got probably the second best player on Duke, which is really, really great. I love Knuppel. He's the total energy guy.
Yeah.
Got him at number 4, so that was great. But we'll see. We'll see some of these players.
I don't think there was a lot of stars and NBA All-Stars in this. I could be wrong. That could play out differently. But I didn't feel like there were a lot of generational players other than Cooper Flag.
It was solid roster building type players.
Decent roster building, good, G League filling and potential bench filling guys. People who can potentially work their way in by the time they're 22, 23 into the starting lineup, which is good. You don't want to put a lot of pressure on these young people. They will crack. A lot of them aren't equipped for the pressure yet, so they need to kind of ease their way in. And I think that in most cases, they'll be able to do that.
Any big themes for you coming out in Major League Baseball or in some of the many soccer tournaments that are going right now? I don't think I've ever watched so much soccer in my life as Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. There was so much on.
I've been kind of surprised at some of the baseball results so far. How bad Pittsburgh is, how bad Colorado is, and then the teams I follow, Baltimore and Washington Nationals, are both the bottom of their divisions. So that was surprising. Yankees are not doing great. They have a good record, but they've been kind of struggling.
They had a really solid beginning, and then the last 3 weeks they started to fade. And I watched some of that Mets-Yankees series where the Mets swept them. And the Mets are the better team right now.
Mets look good.
Yeah. Mets have better pitching. They have better hitting, clutch hitting.
So you're starting to see some of the teams separate a little bit.
The Yankees have built a roster around home run hitting, and when the bats are not hot, they can't score. So they end up losing these games 8-2, 10-2, because when they're not hitting home runs, they're not scoring. So,
right,
it's I would have, and the Orioles did this 2 seasons ago, and they've been trying to correct it by getting guys who can hit doubles and singles and hit for the cycle. But when you put your whole team on the back of home run hitting, you're going to have stretches where you're just not hitting very much. So
that's right.
Another big story I've been watching is the Ohtani return. We'll talk about that here in a minute, but that was really exciting. I was reading the article about all the things somebody with that surgery has to go through to get ready and why it takes a year and a half to get them back to throwing a 95-mile-an-hour fastball, because the amount of stress it puts on their arm is so great that they can't risk it until they know he's 100% fully healed, and it takes over a year to heal. So, I've been rooting for Ohtani. He's, one of the best players in baseball. He had a fantastic year last year, not pitching and just hitting.
Yeah, he had a nice year.
And there was some question about whether he really should be coming back to pitch. And there was some question about maybe they just make him the permanent DH. But he wants to be a two-way player, and they went ahead and did it. And he's had 2 starts now back, and it's gone pretty well. So
he looks good. Yeah.
yeah. And then Juan Soto, I think, is starting to earn his contract. He's got the record all-time contract in Major League history for the Mets. And he's looked really good, and he's doing a great job for the Mets. They're battling with the Phillies right now. The Detroit Tigers are probably the biggest story in baseball. They made the playoffs last year on the lowest payroll in baseball, and this year they still have the lowest payroll in baseball, and they're leading their division. So whatever that GM and coach are doing with peanuts is pretty remarkable to watch.
Good stuff, yeah.
So, and then in the soccer stuff, I was watching this weekend the Women's Euro out of Europe. I was watching, of course, multiple MLS games, including my Charlotte FC. I went to see them Saturday night to play. They tied the game 2-2. But then
you went to the game, right?
Yeah, I went to the game. And then the big tournament that's going on right now, of course, is the Club FIFA World Cup Championship. And we're going to get into that with the quarterfinal games that showed. But they're getting very close to the end now. This weekend they'll have the final. It's been a lot of fun to watch. Well, let's go ahead and take a look at what we got for this week. All right, so this week we're calling it NBA Reloaded for our weekend recap. First big story, of course, is the NBA draft. We'll go through that here in very much detail here in a minute and talk about some of the major stories that came out of that. The next big story, we'll talk about an offseason move, which was the Rockets acquiring Kevin Durant from the Phoenix Suns. The Rockets last year, of course, made the playoffs and won their first round series, and they feel like they're very close. And they're in an incredibly competitive West, as we just talked about, and needed to, ladder up a little bit. And so they feel like the one thing they were missing was a consistent, 30-point shooter every night, and they went ahead and got Durant and feel like they may be really close in the West. Any thoughts about that particular trade?
I think it's a really good trade. I think they upgraded significantly. I think anybody who thinks Durant doesn't still have it is kind of off base. So I like the trade. I think that makes the Rockets a pretty strong contender.
I
They have
agree.
a good nucleus. So that was a good move. 7 teams were involved in that trade.
I completely agree that they're definitely a contender. So one of the reasons he wants to leave, and all these guys who are kind of long in the tooth, is, of course, they have a couple years left and they want to compete for championships. And Phoenix Suns are likely going to be very close to the bottom of the West. So those are the kind of moves these guys want to make. Another guy who's looking at a similar move is LeBron James. A new ownership group has taken over for the Lakers. We're going to get into that, but he's looking at a situation where he's probably got 1 year left, maybe 2, and a Lakers team that's nowhere close to a championship level team. And so there's rumors right now that the Dallas Mavericks want to bring him in to join the other 4 first-round picks. So they, with him, would have 5 first-round picks on the same team. And, of course, he would rejoin Kyrie, who he won a championship with in Cleveland. What are your thoughts about the realistic chance of this happening, him going ring shopping, continue to try to build his legacy, and that maybe his time in LA has run out?
I don't know. I think it would take a lot to take him away from the team that, puts him in LA where he wants to be, in the center of entertainment. His son is there. I don't know. I'm not sure the timing is right to make the move. Although if he only has 1 or 2 years left, it's certainly not going to be smart to hang around a rebuild.
I think the problem is LeBron knows NBA really, really well. He knows the championship team when he sees it, and he knows the LA Lakers without Anthony Davis and without some of the other support are not a championship level team right now. So
right,
that's the problem he's got to face. And so he needs to decide, do I want to come back to the Lakers, play with my son potentially, and maybe make the playoffs and lose in the first round? Or do I want to keep building my legacy and go join this really special team they're building in Dallas? So we'll talk some more about that during the program, whether we think that trade might happen or whether he's going to stay a Laker. So another big story we'll talk about is that Soccer Club World Cup championship that's coming up. We'll talk about, of course, Ohtani's return and Juan Soto and Aaron Judge. And the question is are these three players the best players in baseball right now? I personally think so, but
Yeah,
there's
probably.
an argument that there's a couple of other guys that might be in there. But these guys are the faces of MLB right now. Well, let's look at the first round of the draft. You can see, of course, Cooper Flagg goes first. Dylan Harper from Rutgers goes second to the Spurs. It's a really nice addition for them. That's another team nobody's really talking about, but they've kind of loaded up the last couple of drafts as well. So the 2025 NBA first-round draft saw Cooper Flagg go number 1. Duke had a strong showing with 3 players selected in the top 10, including Flagg, Knupel to my Charlotte Hornets, and then Malinak to the Phoenix Suns at number 10. So they're trying to go younger. So Duke had quite a showing there with 3 guys in the top 10 picks. Utah Jazz made a notable pick by selecting Rutgers guard Ace Bailey at number 5. So again, Rutgers had 2 of the top 5 picks, which is pretty impressive. And he initially was projected to go second half of first round. So he went way above what they were thinking he would. And then Brooklyn Nets also made headlines by utilizing all 5 of their first-round picks, focusing on the youth movement. They've basically gotten rid of all veterans, and they're going complete youth movement, and they know they're going to probably not be very good for a year or 2, but they're hoping to go the OKC model and build really, really young and have a bunch of young guys growing into their skills, I guess you could say. So what do you think of that? Do you think the Nets have a chance to follow that track?
I think it's pretty good as long as the owner group can hang in there and understand the direction of how this is going to play out. It's growing pains, so can they stand that?
That's right. 5 first-round picks. It's never happened before for one team. That shows you how many trades they've made the last 3 years. They've basically been trading everybody they have for first-round picks.
Yeah.
And storing them up, and then decided this year this is the year to completely rebuild. So anybody else on this list surprise you? I saw Walter Clayton Jr. went to the Washington Wizards. I think that's a really good pick for them. He's a great player. Got him at 18.
Not really.
I think Jace Richardson was a really good pickup at 25. I thought he'd go above that.
I like the Knupel pick. I liked Ace Bailey.
Edgecombe's a really good player. Those top 5 players are going to be bona fides.
Jeremiah Fears going to the Pelicans.
Yeah, I like that too.
Yeah, really good athlete.
Yeah.
A lot of people are not sure about him, but
again, you notice the fewest number of foreign players in a long time.
Yeah,
which was really surprising this year.
Only a handful of players in the top. The
Grizzlies chose Yang Hansen as a backup center because, of course, they already have Zach Edey. And Yang Hansen, they were projecting him to be second half of the second round. They took
I think he's too slow-footed.
They took him way above where anybody was projecting.
Yeah, I think that was a mistake pick.
But they really wanted to build a backup center behind Zach Edey. So.
And I understand that, but you don't reach that far.
Yeah, we'll see. See what happens.
Trade down and still get the same guy.
Some interesting moves here. I think, like I said before, most of these teams got a little bit better. It was just a deep draft. There was, like you said, not a lot of huge stars.
Yeah, not a lot of stars.
Those top 5 guys, I think, are going to be really good players. And then the rest of them are going to likely be role players for a long time.
Yeah.
So let's look at round 2. Saw several notable events happen, including the Phoenix Suns making 2 trades to acquire the 31st pick, which is at the top of the rung there, as you can see. And they took Rasheer Fleming, which was interesting. They really, really wanted him and saw him sitting there at the top of the second round, so they grabbed him. Los Angeles Lakers traded their 36th pick to select Adu Thero, which is really interesting. People weren't sure, that he was going to go that high, but interesting that they did. And then, of course, Philadelphia takes Johnny Broom, who had been projected at the mid of the first round and slipped all the way down to number 35, which was kind of shocking for a lot of people.
I found that surprising.
Any thoughts about why he would have dropped that much? Maybe his weight, maybe his conditioning.
Maybe, but I don't know. I found that one surprising.
Yeah. And then there were 4 players that were really surprising that did not go drafted at all. And that was Ryan Nembhard with the Mavericks. Hunter Dickinson went to the Pelicans. He had a really great college career. Caleb Love went to the Trailblazers, having not gotten drafted, which really surprised everybody because he stayed one additional year to go higher in the first round and then doesn't get drafted. And then Eric Dixon with the Lakers. So you had 4 players there that everyone thought were bona fide picks that were undrafted. So does that speak to the fact that this was a deep draft? Does it mean that there's questions about these 4 players, that they aren't quite ready yet? Maybe they're going to go G League for a while.
Yeah, I guess they just didn't get enough skills on tape, and it was a pretty deep draft of good players, not great stars, but players that can compete for roster spots and possibly starting positions. And if you had a little bit of a disappointing year, you weren't gonna get drafted.
I think if you're the Pelicans and you can pick up Hunter Dickinson and develop him behind Zion Williamson, I mean, that's a pretty good pickup. You don't have to spend a draft pick. And then Trailblazers, same thing with Caleb Love. He's a solid player. I think he can become a good pro over time. Yeah. So it'll be interesting to watch these 4 players to see if they can work themselves into a roster and if they're able to hang on in the league or if they have to go to the G League for a while. Any other picks here surprise you? I saw Cam Jones go to the Spurs. Anybody else of note?
Not really. Those are the surprising ones.
I think so. Tyrese Proctor dropped all the way almost out of the draft altogether. I thought he would go much higher. He went to the Cavaliers. I think he'll be a really good player too. I really like Tyrese Proctor. He was the heartbeat of that team, I think.
Yeah, he's good.
Yeah. So this will be interesting to watch these players in both rounds and also these undrafted guys to see how they do coming out of camp into next year. Let's look at some of the off-season moves we need to talk about here. First one is expert calls Dallas realistic destination for James. So, a lot of people really think it's going to happen, that James doesn't want to play for a middling team that might not make the playoffs. Another headline here, Lakers did not have substantive discussions about extending James' contract before he opted in. Of course, he had the player option in this contract, and he was able to opt in for 1 more year, whether the club wanted it or not. And so that was very interesting that he did that, kind of like a defensive move. He opted into his last year, even though new ownership in Los Angeles is making all kinds of indications that they're going to be going into rebuilding mode.
Mm-hmm.
Another one here, Mavericks with Anthony Davis, Kyrie Irving, Klay Thompson, and new rookie Cooper Flagg would be only interested in acquiring LeBron James in a buyout situation. And what that means is they're okay giving up a pick for him, but they don't want to pay his full load. They want the Lakers to pick up at least half of his salary. So what are your thoughts about that? And would that be something the Lakers would go for? Take the second round pick and then get half of the salary off their books?
I don't know if the numbers work, but it would be a good move for him and for Dallas. So although you're going to have to rebuild really soon if you go this route because you have a lot of old veterans that have injury problems.
Do you think Dallas can win the championship with AD, Kyrie, Klay, and Cooper?
Can they stay healthy? I don't know.
I think they're better, but I don't think they're OKC level.
The only one in that group that doesn't have a history of injury problems is Cooper Flagg.
That's right. That's true. So I think the reason the Mavericks are thinking about bringing in James is because they feel like they have this special group building, but they know they're not quite there yet. They're not quite OKC. They're not quite Minnesota Timberwolves.
Yeah.
and they think they need one more guy who's a bona fide distributor and scorer. So I don't know. I'm 50-50 on whether this deal could actually happen. I'm with you. I kind of think he likes his home in Los Angeles, and he likes playing with his son, and
Yeah.
he likes the stardom and all
It would
that.
take
But
something extraordinary to pull him away from that, I think.
But he also wants more than 4 rings before he retires. So
Yeah.
I don't know. We'll see what happens. So another huge story that came out this past week, SGA, Shai Gilgus Alexander, the new champion of the NBA, signs a 4-year, $285 million guaranteed contract, which is just pretty astounding to think about the dollars these guys are getting these days. So what's your thought about that? Is he worth it? Do they really have a choice? I mean, he's coming off his rookie contract. You kind of have to reward the guy for getting you a championship, right?
Yeah, I mean, I like it because he's young, but I don't really like paying anyone that much money just because of injuries.
That's a lot of coin. He makes almost $100 million on top of that in endorsements.
He needs to stay healthy no matter what,
Yeah. Yeah, so I think that they didn't really have a choice. The way the NBA is structured today, when you have a young star like this coming off his rookie deal, you just got to lock him up for as long as possible. This
I get it.
This contract looks outrageous right now, but in 4 years, it'll look like a bargain. So it's just how it is.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. So he's really becoming the face of the NBA, really. Next big one, Memphis Grizzlies and Orlando Magic tipped off a trade with a multiplayer deal. Desmond Bane headed to Orlando in exchange for Caldwell Pope and Cole Anthony and 4 future first-round picks for a first-round swap, which is pretty incredible. So what this tells me is that Orlando Magic are looking at an East that's very weak. They're looking at the Pacers and the Celtics both have their best player on the shelf for a year because of surgeries.
Yes.
And they're looking at a very
now.
East. And they're saying to themselves, we made the playoffs last year. Orlando did. Let's add Desmond Bane and let's see if we can take the East. Does it look that way to you?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely right.
You push your chips to the middle.
Strike while the iron's hot and take some risk.
Yeah. Push your chips to the middle and just go for it.
Yeah. Because
those teams will be back the year after with their stars who are healthy again. Yeah. So, I think it's a good trade for Orlando. Future first-round picks be darned in the NBA these days if you can hit your window.
Mm-hmm.
So we mentioned the Phoenix Suns forward Kevin Durant going to the Houston Rockets and what the impact of that is. I think we covered that pretty well.
Yeah.
DeAndre Ayton signed with the Lakers. A lot of people think that this is a defensive move to try to keep James because one of the biggest weaknesses, and it was kind of sad to watch last year, the Lakers as they went out in the first round against the Timberwolves, and the Timberwolves just ate them alive inside.
Yeah, they didn't look very good.
It was sad. It was sad. They just, without AD, they don't have a big man, And so they filled that hole with a really solid center, and that's DeAndre Ayton, 3-time All-Star. So thoughts about that? Do you think that could keep James in Los Angeles?
It's possible. I don't think James wants to leave. I think he's looking at his options. It very well might be enough to keep him. A series of moves and then some promises made behind closed doors.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that this was a defensive move. I'm not sure this will still be enough to keep him because he wants another ring, but it gives them a center, whether James stays or not, that they really need. They didn't have one last year, so. And gives Ayton a new start as well. He's kind of bounced around a little bit lately.
Sure.
This was a big signing for the Charlotte Hornets. Trey Mann was a really nice surprise last year. He was one of the real nice surprises, especially when you have injuries on the Hornets, which happens often. He signed a 3-year, $24 million deal, which is a very reasonable price for the Hornets for a backup point guard, especially when LaMelo Ball misses about a third of the games. So that was a nice pickup for the Hornets. Sacramento Kings trading Valanciunas to Denver for Dario Saric, and this is something that apparently Denver looked at 3 different spots. They were weak last year that they really need to build around Jokic. And one of the things they needed, they felt, was a backup center or a 7-footer. And so they got their guy from the Sacramento Kings.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think anybody's had a better offseason than the Denver Nuggets, other than maybe the Dallas Mavericks?
Yeah, I don't know. I think a lot of teams got some nice depth. There weren't too many reaches where players are going to be forced in before they're ready. So there's a bunch of teams that got a little better.
What's funny is they said that this move, because he's such a solid NBA center and proven, allows Jokic to maybe move to the 4, because he likes to run the break and everything. So he doesn't have the pressure to be the center if he's on the floor. That'll be really interesting. You'll have 2 7-footers on the floor at the same time, one of them acting like he's a guard. So I think Denver has definitely improved. Whether they'll be fully back, we'll see. Milwaukee Bucks waiving Damian Lillard. That was a big shock.
That was strange. Yeah.
They had just paid him a huge $113 million contract. And what they've done is really interesting. They've stretched that $113 million in dead cap money out over 6 years. So it's not such a huge impact. And they did this to create a roster spot for Miles Turner, who, of course, had a huge year for the Pacers last year.
What's wild is that Lillard can now go to a contender that doesn't have very much cap space and take a big hometown discount.
Right.
Because the Bucks are already paying him. So he can sit out if he wants, or he can go get, $15 million somewhere, which would be a tremendous value.
Or $5 million.
And join, well, yeah, maybe.
He can go to like,
I'm hearing 12 to 15,
or something.
But huge discount on what he's worth, and he could make a run for a ring like pretty easily.
It's true. It's true. Well, it'd be really interesting to see where he lands. Obviously the Milwaukee Bucks are trying to keep Giannis, and one way they think they can do so is to add talent and add height, and add length.
Yeah.
And they are totally obsessed with Miles Turner. They really want him on their roster. So,
right.
So we'll see. We'll see. It may make both of these teams better, Bucks better, and also the future Damian Lillard employer. So, So last one here is free agent center Brook Lopez agreed to a 2-year, $18 million deal with the LA Clippers. That was another concern with the Clippers to get them competitive in the playoffs. Is they really needed a big man who could score. And so they feel like they filled that hole now with Brook Lopez. He's a pretty solid center.
He's good.
He can give you 20 a night,
Sure.
Any other thoughts about these overall offseason moves that are being made?
Crappy. No, those are all good moves. They're very logical. I think they take into account needs and contracts and the whole business side of things. Lots of logic here. I think a lot of teams did things that help them one way or another going forward.
I think the biggest thing everyone's waiting on is James going to stay or not?
And Damian Lillard, what's going to happen?
And Damian, and the question for James, apparently he's got to make up his mind by mid-August. So he's got essentially about a month left to make this big decision on where he's going to spend what's likely going to be his last year in the league. So we will all be watching. Let's take a look at the FIFA Club World Cup. We're going to give you an update on the quarterfinal games. The first game here, Chelsea took care of business 2-1. It was a really competitive match. They went up 2-0 in the first 10 minutes and then had to kind of hold on. But I've always felt like Chelsea was one of the favorites in this tournament.
Yeah.
And I know my kids really love Chelsea. That's their team. So I kind of
they're easy to root for,
semi-follow them for that reason. Next game was Fluenese out of France. They win 2-1 as well in a very competitive game against Hilal. So, which is a Israeli team. So they move on. Probably the most amazing game I've seen in a long time. PSG beats Bayern Munich 2-0.
That was a powerhouse game.
What was incredible about this game, it felt like it should have been the final, but it was 0-0 at half. Then PSG loses a man to a red card and goes down 10 on 11. They score their first goal 10 on 11. So now they're up 1-0, and they have to hold on, one man down. Then in the last 10 minutes of the game, PSG gets another guy sent off who had a yellow card in the first half, and he had another yellow card. So now they're 9 on 11. The last 10 minutes of the game. Not only does Bayern not score 11 on 9, but PSG puts in a final goal with 5 minutes left on an unbelievable header cross. And I don't think I've ever seen that before, where a team is that far down in players and was able to pull off this victory like this. It's pretty incredible.
It's hard to remember one like that.
And both those guys cannot play in the semifinal. They could play in the final, but it'll be interesting to see what PSG does. I know they're loaded with talent, but they're going to have to play with both those guys out in the semis. And then the other game I watched yesterday, really great game. Real Madrid beats Dortmund 3-2. Real Madrid took a pretty quick 2-0 lead in the first half. And then they substituted in Mbappe at the 65-minute mark. So he comes in. He's coming off an injury, so they've been kind of sparingly playing him. He comes in, and about 5 minutes after he comes in, he scores one of the nicest goals I've seen in a long time on a cross, where he does a cross coming across, and he did a bicycle kick into the goal. So Real Madrid goes 3-0. Yeah, he comes into the game and does that. I'm just like, oh my gosh. So they're up 3-0, looking like they're cruising to victory, and then they surrendered 2 goals in the last 10 minutes and almost gave up a third. They almost choked, but end up holding on to advance. But what a great game that was.
Yeah, for sure.
Any thoughts about this tournament, how it's going? I mean, it looks like all the big club teams are
it was
winning.
just a great tournament
Yeah,
so far.
Not a lot of surprises, really.
No.
Except maybe Bayern. A lot of people picked Bayern to win that one.
Yeah. I don't know. PSG is pretty solid.
They are solid. They are really solid. That was really impressive for them to score again 9 on 11. I don't think I've ever seen that before at any level. So the semifinal games, the first one is actually tomorrow, Tuesday, 3 o'clock. It's Fluminense against Chelsea.
Mm-hmm.
Who do you like in that game, Robbie?
I think Chelsea.
I think Chelsea too.
I hope so.
Fluminense, I think they've gone about as far as they can go.
Yeah, they've done their run, and we'll see.
Got a nice tournament. Obviously, Chelsea is a rooting interest for us, but I also think they'll win the game. I think they're the better team.
Should.
And then PSG, of course, goes through to the semis against Real Madrid. This is just absolute Titan against Titan in the other game, which is on Wednesday. Who you got in this one?
God, I don't know. It's probably the hardest one to pick. PSG, maybe?
I like Real Madrid. I think those 2 players are going to be out. And I think, Miami was the only team left in the round of 16 from the MLS league, and they gave Paris a real hard time. Paris ended up winning 2-1, but the way Real Madrid played, and of course they did let their foot off the gas, but I think Real Madrid's the better team. So I got them.
It very well might be.
We'll see what happens. Will I be surprised if PSG wins? No, I will not. Then the final game will be on Sunday at 3 o'clock. But we'll see. That'll be real fun to watch. Whatever matchup we get out of this first FIFA Club World Cup. So do you think this format has worked out well? They're going to do it alternating in between the World Cup?
Fantastic.
I think it's really cool. What a great idea.
Yeah.
So definitely tune in, guys, and drop us a comment what you guys have thought of this FIFA Club World Cup.
We'd love to hear your thoughts on how this tournament's going and what you think's going to happen.
Yeah, it's been a lot of fun to watch. Let's look at the AL and NL baseball standings. We haven't looked at them in a while. We really need to talk about it as we come up on the All-Star break next week. So some of the real trends here. First thing is the Detroit Tigers, maybe the most surprising team in the MLB this year. Last year made the playoffs on the lowest payroll in baseball. This year, they have the best record in the American League. And they're leading their division by 13 and a half games. It's really remarkable. Can you believe this team? I mean, it feels a little bit like Moneyball, right?
Yeah, Yeah.
Their entire payroll is less than Aaron Judge's.
I do think that some
You
of
know?
these GMs have figured it out
Yeah.
on how to make money without spending dumb money, you
And
know?
you know what Detroit did? They spent 10 years building their farm system and
Yeah.
investing in it and drafting really young kids. And now they've all come up and they've all become really good players.
Yeah.
My question is going to be next year and the year after, are all the big clubs going to come pluck them all? I think
But
so.
here's the thing. Good organizations tend to develop those players and keep them. Bad organizations develop them and ship them off for picks and then blowing the picks and never doing anything with that. And all the
Right.
best talent just keeps flooding out of your organization.
That's right.
And you're still spending money. So that's a good GM can develop them in the system and then bring them up and then hang on to them and put them into the lineups.
That's true. So that's probably the most surprising story so far. The other teams here that are leading, Toronto is probably the hottest team in the American League right now. They've won 8
Yeah.
straight. And they at one time they were behind the Yankees by 7 games. Now they're up on the Yankees by 3.
Yeah, they look
And
great.
And they're up on Tampa, and they have clutch hitting. They hit for the cycle. Every time they get a guy on base, they bring him in. They just are one of those really solid teams. What are your thoughts about Toronto?
Yeah, they look great. They look great. They've 8 straight wins. They're just clicking. 52-38 is their record, and they're doing it with just incredible team effort every night.
Right, that's right. So another really well-run team other than the Detroit Tigers are the Houston Astros. I guess we shouldn't be surprised that they're leading their division again. They're just one of those teams that just builds through their farm
Houston,
system. Yeah, Houston
yeah,
Astros.
they just kind of do it right, and I know there's a lot of black eye for them with the cheating scandals, but from somebody that doesn't have any axe to grind with them, I'm pretty impressed with how consistently good they are.
That's true.
They're kind of like the New England Patriots
That's right.
back in the day. They're just always good, and they're always going to be there. And you can blame the deflated footballs if you want, but
So this is not the American League standings you would have expected. I would have thought Yankees and Tampa Bay Rays would be up top,
yeah,
of the East. You would have thought maybe Minnesota or Kansas City would be top in the Central. And then West, maybe Houston, maybe the Texas Rangers, and yet we have this kind of scrambled situation. So do you think this is how it's going to finish, or do you think there's going to be a lot of changes in the second half?
I think it's going to be close to this. There's going to be a little reshuffling, but like, do I think the Athletics are going to get back in it? No.
No.
And
the White Sox are the worst.
Do I think the White Sox are, just going to keep just tanking? Yeah, probably. But can Cleveland improve from their losing 10 straight? Yeah, they can get better.
Mm-hmm.
They still have a nice record. They're next to last place, but how far out are they? They're right in there. So
the most disappointing team in the American League this year is the Baltimore Orioles. They were picked to win the East, and they are sitting right now 11.5 out from Toronto. But lately they've been playing a lot better.
I knew they were in last place in their division, but when I double checked, those numbers don't look so scary to me.
I know
they can get back in it.
I really feel like, matter of fact, if you look at the wild card race right now in the American League, they're 4 games out of the wild card. So
yeah,
I have a feeling the way they've been hitting lately, they just swept Atlanta. I have a feeling they might get back in it. You might see them at the end of the year.
Yeah, I'd say that that's 50-50 whether they can sneak in a wild card.
Yeah. They're going to have to keep this winning streak up the second half for sure.
They're going to have to get a lot of work done, but
they're getting a little better pitching. They only gave up 2 runs on average to each of the 3 games against Atlanta. So if they can get a little bit better pitching, then they'll be good.
Yeah.
But it's certainly been disappointing so far.
But do I think they're headed for the World Series? No.
No, I don't think so either. So on the NL side, is this shocking to you, Rob, that the Los Angeles Dodgers have the best record in the National League?
No. I am surprised how bad the Pirates are.
Yeah, the Pirates have been terrible. The Phillies and the Mets are having a knockout, drag-out battle in the East. It's been really fun to watch. Both teams are really good. They'll both make the playoffs. One of them wild card, one of them division. And then the most surprising team, other than the Detroit Tigers in baseball this year, is the Chicago Cubs. They've been just so good this year. And, everyone picked Milwaukee to win that division, and Chicago's kind of running away with it. They've been really, really impressive. Their pitching is fantastic.
Yeah.
So the team that's been the most disappointing on the National League side, of course, is the Atlanta Braves. They have a bunch of big injuries. Two of their big stars are out for the season. But not really an excuse for how badly they've been playing. And they don't have enough hitting. They're averaging 2.1 runs per game. And that doesn't get it done in the modern game anymore.
Look at the Rockies. 21-69. Yikes.
Any other surprises you see here? Teams
surprises
better or worse?
I feel like
are the Nationals ever going to be good again?
Are a surprise.
Yeah.
The Pirates are a surprise.
Yeah.
To me. And then after that, not really. Arizona's a little bit mediocre.
Yeah, I thought the Arizona would be a little bit better. I think thought they'd be pushing the Dodgers this year.
But I'm not shocked by any of these results, really.
I see the Cubs and the Dodgers winning their divisions. The Phillies and Mets are probably going to go down to the last weekend or something because they're just battling back and forth.
Yeah.
I don't think the Braves can get back in it. They just don't have enough hitting. And I like the Braves. They're my National League team, but just not good enough this year. So we will come back to you guys with another update kind of in a couple weeks on where we are with MLB. Let's look at some NFL news. This was interesting. The Aaron Rodgers contract was released, and there's a lot of incentives in it. And I'm wondering if this is kind of the way a lot of teams are going to go, is loading these contracts up with lots of incentives for production for, especially older guys who are towards the end of their career. We've got $500,000 if the Steelers make the playoffs. They got $600,000 if they make a wild card round, first round win. $750,000 for a divisional round win. $1 million for an AFC title game win, etc. What are your thoughts about this type of structure? Is this the way to go?
I think so. I think it's a results-based business, and the idea of that they had moved to paying everyone on potential instead of on what they've accomplished. I think it's kind of run its course, and I think it's just it's a lot more about, hey, it's nice that you have this great career going, but what can you do for us this year?
I think more teams should go to this. I mean, why wouldn't you? Especially your quarterback. Yeah. Instead of giving him $50 million, give him $35 million, and then load it up with these incentives. Like if he wins the MVP award,
if you do win all these things for us and you lead all these categories, then you've earned it.
If Aaron Rodgers wins the MVP award, he should get the $1.5 million. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like if he wins the Super Bowl,
if he wins the MVP, his team goes to beyond the division.
Probably the AFC title game. Probably.
He should be making $60 million at the end of that situation. But the Dak Prescott contracts have to stop.
Right.
Here's $60 million. Hopefully we do okay. I
know the players probably don't necessarily like it, but I think if I was a GM, I'd be nudging, especially quarterbacks, towards this type of system.
Yeah.
So next one is Shaq Thompson goes to Buffalo. And I don't know what it is about the last 5 years, but Buffalo always takes the best Panther players. It's like a pipeline from Charlotte to Buffalo. Yeah. So thoughts about that? The end of a very storied Panther career. Shaq Thompson, always liked him. He came in and filled in for Thomas Davis.
Yeah, I think they're getting a good player there. I like him his whole career. I feel like he was a very versatile player. He could line up in several different positions and be effective. He was a good hitter for his size, and he could really cover and fly around. So they're getting a really good player there, which is unfortunate for my Dolphins.
Do you think that the reason that Buffalo always picks the Panther players, especially defensive players, is because McDermott is the head coach? It just feels like, because he used to be the defensive coordinator in Charlotte. And
it's possible.
Yeah, feels like there's a connection there.
I think his eyes are open to those players.
Yeah.
But, I think
I mean, let's
you're
be honest. They wanted to keep Shaq Thompson, but he was a cap casualty, and it's just as simple as that.
yeah,
You can't keep guys forever. Yeah,
no.
it came down to cap.
Yeah,
This
availability,
is pretty
performance.
interesting. You tell me if you agree with this, Robbie. The wide receiver tiers. Okay, at the top you got Jamar Chase, CeeDee Lamb, Malik Neighbors, Nico Collins. So that's your tier one. Your tier two, you got Lad McConkey, you got Justin Jefferson, Drake London, St. Brown, and Rashee Rice. Tier three, Puka Nakua, AJ Brown, Devontae Adams, and Brian Thomas Jr. And then tier four, Egbuka, who hadn't played a snap yet. T. Higgins, Cortland Sutton. You got Njigba, and you got McMillan, who's now with the Panthers, who hadn't played a snap yet either. You think this is how it looks? Are these the tiers? Are guys too low, too high?
Jefferson is too low.
Yeah, I would definitely have him tier one. I agree. I might put.
I wouldn't put Nico Collins in tier one.
I'd put Nico down at about tier three. He's good, but I might even put St. Brown at tier one. Like, he's really come on.
I'd put Jefferson in tier one
for sure.
In Nico Collins' spot.
And I'm not sure I put Puka Nakua at three. I think he's a little higher. He's probably a two. He's really dominant.
Yeah. I might shuffle a few of these, but I don't think there's a dramatic problem with it.
Rashee Rice hadn't played in a year. Good player, but I'm not sure I put him in tier two.
No. Tier three, maybe.
Yeah, this is interesting. Chase, Lamb, Neighbors, Collins. I'd put Chase, Lamb, Neighbors, Jefferson, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
Something like that. And then maybe even put St. Brown up there as well. This is pretty funny. Use one word to describe Joe Burrow's new look. What do you think, Robbie? Have you ever seen a player who has more looks than this guy? Like, sometimes he's in a tuxedo, sometimes he's in sunglasses, sometimes he looks like an 80s rock guy, sometimes he's got the mullet, sometimes he doesn't. I'm not criticizing. I think it's entertaining, but
he keeps it fun. I don't know.
Maybe that's what it is. Maybe it's just his personality, I think.
Yeah.
Now he's gone mullet.
Yeah, he's trying to let his personality out.
Yeah. Yeah. It does make him interesting. I mean, they follow him for that reason. See what he's going to wear.
Well, he's interesting because he's so good. He's one of the best in the league.
Yeah.
And
but he's also flashy.
With a team that's light in talent, he's still winning games. It's crazy.
Wouldn't you love him to be on the Dolphins?
Oh yeah.
God.
Oh my God. He'd be in contention every year.
That's Rob's dream.
Yeah.
So next one here is Shador Sanders had his second speeding ticket. This one going 101 miles an hour in a 60-mile-an-hour zone. He had 2 in a week. And apparently Cleveland brought him into the office, and they had a 3-hour meeting to talk about how they want him to conduct himself after the second one. And they assigned a lawyer to him as well. So is this a problem? Is this a maturity thing? Is this something where Cleveland's starting to already wear thin with his act?
Yeah, I mean, Cleveland's quarterback room is so full. You can't afford any black marks on your record. And I like the kid. I think I've always kind of liked how Dion has handled him. I don't have a lot of bad things to say or anything, but he's got to understand how serious this is. And, listening to some Cleveland fans kind of downplay it is not reading the room. I mean, I think it's pretty dramatic to be in a dogfight for a position and be making these kind of boneheaded decisions. It could be the tiniest little mistake that could cost you the difference.
Mm-hmm. That's true. So, I think it's concerning. I mean, you're talking about a guy who got drafted, 5th round, and is very questionable whether he's going to make the roster in the first place, or whether he's going to be on a practice squad, or whether he's going to play in the Canadian Football League.
Right.
or maybe get just released and somebody picks him up as a
You
developmental
don't
guy.
want questions about your character when you're teetering on getting cut.
And I have to think, this is a guy who's been driving sports cars for a long time because he made a lot of money in college.
And he's
So,
used to being in the spotlight because he's Deion Sanders' son.
right.
This shouldn't be something he's having trouble handling.
So maybe he shouldn't drive a Ferrari anymore. I don't know.
You should just have a driver.
Just have a driver or get him like a Toyota Camry or something. I don't know. But this is concerning. I think the Browns have
a driver drive his Ferrari around.
The Browns have a lot of worry about it, and clearly they're paying attention to it. So
yeah.
This next one is painful for you, but me in 2005, man, I really hope the Dolphins can finally win a playoff game. Me in 2025, man, I hope the Dolphins can win a playoff game. So
Thanks for putting that slide in there, Tommy.
When's it going to happen, Robbie? 20 years.
It's been a rough ride, let me tell you.
So is this the year, do you think?
It's always the year, man.
Always the year? Okay.
It's always the year.
I'm rooting for them, you know that. But
they let too many talented defensive players go last year and didn't replace them. And
do you think the McDaniels act is starting to wear thin? Do you think that he's a coordinator?
I think that's an overreaction. I think he's a bright mind. I think he's good at juggling. If you think about it, Tyreek Hill was this close to trying to ask for a trade, and he calmed the waters. I think he's a good coach.
I'm worried about the Dolphins because they're in a tough division. I mean, the Bills are going to dominate that division until someone knocks them off. The Jets have improved, I think.
My biggest knock on McDaniels is that he goes away from his normal game plan when he plays a good team. For whatever reason, he just stops running the ball, and he tries to throw to Tyreek on every play. And a good team can take that away from you. So I worry that we can beat a bad team 70-3, but then when we play a good team, we always lose.
Mm-hmm.
It's because he changes the game plan so much. I think if he stayed with what makes them good, I think they'd be really tough to beat.
Well, what Schlereth said at the end of last season about the Dolphins, he said they're soft. He said that's his biggest concern with them is that they're soft. And so when they get into playoff situations in the cold, they get beat up by the Ravens, by the Bills. So what can they do to make this team more physical? Because that's what they need to do to compete in the AFC.
Well, stay healthy so you can compete hard. Win home field advantage,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So that you can control how cold. Remember that game against Kansas City a couple of years ago in the playoffs where they were amputating limbs of Chiefs fans,
right?
Because they were out in the elements so much. That was a cold game. That was a tragic road game that shouldn't have happened. That should have been in South Florida. So at the end of the day, no complaints. Just win your division, win as many games as you can, get home field, and then you don't have to worry about how bad you are in the cold.
True. If everything goes through Miami.
Yeah.
So next one here is sleeper teams for 2025, according to Rich Eisen. His first one is the San Francisco 49ers. He thinks that the San Francisco is dead talk is crazy. He really believes they still have a really great roster. They ran into injury problems last year with McCaffrey and others, but they still have Purdy. They still have a good coach. They have a good staff. They have a good roster. And he feels like this discussion about the 49ers are dead is just not true. What are your thoughts about them being the number one sleeper team?
I'm hearing that a lot in multiple locations, the Niners being a sleeper team. We'll see. I think they got a lot of reason to think that they might be better.
Everyone's writing them off and saying the Rams are going to win that division, that 49ers aren't going to make the playoffs. I'm not so sure about that. Fully healthy.
Not either.
The Niners are still really good.
I've always been impressed with Brock Purdy, and I think he gets no credit.
They re-signed Kittle. They've got Ayuk under contract.
They're getting Ayuk back.
McCaffrey feels good. I don't know.
Yeah.
Next one is Las Vegas Raiders. They've really loaded up on offense. The question there is Max Crosby doesn't have a lot of help on defense, but they are going to be really exciting offense, score a lot of points. Could make potentially a mid-playoff run. or at least get into the wild card picture.
Yeah.
What do you think about them?
I think they should be better. I don't know.
You got
That's a tough,
Ashton Genty. You got, of course, our
yeah, tough
favorite tight
division.
end prospect last year, Brock Bowers.
Tough division. A lot of nice weapons over the last couple of years. Moving in the right direction.
Mm-hmm.
They
I
still have
still,
some question mark positions.
I still really want to go see a Panthers versus Raiders game in Las Vegas. Like that would just be epic, or even Miami Dolphins.
Yeah,
That'd be so fantastic.
be nice.
So third team on Rich Eisen's list, I was very happy about the Carolina Panthers. He felt like those last 6 games of the year last year when they went 5-1
Yeah,
under rejuvenated Young, that they really showed a lot, and that they've added some really nice pieces in the offseason, including
they're
some
improving.
great linemen.
Yeah.
And they've added some linebackers. They added a really good corner. Do you think they're going to be on the edge of wild card this year?
Yes. They should be teetering on playoffs.
I think so too. Whether they'll be 10-7 or 9-8 in that range,
Yeah.
that's probably where I have them right now. But I'm very excited to see them on this list, and hopefully this comes true. Next one is the New England Patriots. You have another year with Drake May. They've loaded up as well. They've gotten some more weapons. They've been kind of devoid of receivers for a while, but now they've got some weapons on the roster, and they can run the ball. They can play defense. Do you think people are sleeping on the Patriots?
Probably, yeah.
Or are they going to follow the same victim as the Dolphins in that tough division?
Everyone's going to beat each other up, so it's going to be wild card is going to be tough. But Patriots are going to get their wins. So
the most surprising team I had on this list for Rich was New Orleans Saints. I really feel like they're going to be one of the bottom 3 or 4 teams in the league. Their quarterback situation is kind of a nightmare. They do have they have a rookie coming in, Tyler Slow, that nobody knows what he's going to be. So I don't quite understand this one. How do you feel about the Saints?
I don't feel real strongly about them. I think they'll be decent and a little better. It's not the best division.
True.
So,
but everybody in their division is better than they are, I think. But I agree, it's not the best division.
Maybe.
Yeah. Guys, drop us a comment what you think of these 5 sleeper teams. If you agree with them or anything you disagree with, let us know. So UVA athletics update. This was really exciting for us UVA fans. We had a letter come out from Carla Williams just reaffirming that the House versus NCAA case was settled and that teams can now spend up to $20.5 million as a salary cap from their overall revenue share situation. And she was just reaffirming that UVA plans to spend the maximum $20.5 million, and wanted to tell the UVA community, the fans, and all of the recruits coming in that UVA athletics is planning to compete at the highest levels. So do you think this is the new thing now that, GMs and athletic directors feel like they have to do this and project this out to the entire world? Because if they don't, you're going to lose recruits and you're going to lose.
Yeah, you're gonna lose not only the ones that you're trying to bring in, but the ones on your roster already will realize that they're on a sinking ship. So, yeah, you have to project out that you're going to compete in the dollars, and that's going to help you compete on the field.
She also mentions here that UVA has been investing in NIL opportunities for 3 years and has come up a lot on there, and that they also UVA strategically invested in key facility needs leading up to the settlement, particularly opening of the Hardy Football Operations Center in June of 2024. So it seems like they're trying to put some pieces in place to really compete going forward in this new world.
Yeah. They know that's going to take a Herculean effort to put it on the track when right now they're sitting at the bottom of the league, and the league is sitting at the bottom of all the leagues. So
I also feel like she felt tremendous pressure to put this out because her job obviously is at risk too.
Yeah, I think she's
lost
teetering.
some big time coaches.
She's teetering with losing those coaches.
With O'Connor and Bennett and some of the big time guys that have been there for a long time. And her job is to try to retain those type of guys and that talent. So
that's right.
So I felt she had pressure to do that. Well, fortunately for her, she was able to fill the O'Connor role with a guy that I'm not sure you could have gotten a better choice with, this guy, Chris Pollard, who was an incredible coach for Duke.
Yeah, yeah,
And
he's a great choice.
took them to Omaha 2 out of the last 3 years. And he apparently had always coveted the UVA job, but he never thought he'd get it because O'Connor, he thought, would be there forever. And very similar to our new basketball hire, Chris Pollard always looked at the UVA job as a dream job. So how great is it to have a guy who's a very good baseball coach, a good recruiter, and also wanted the job? Like, he actually really wants to be in Charlottesville.
I mean, I think it's Carla Williams' best hire.
I do too.
So,
and maybe save your job,
yeah.
potentially.
And she kind of knocked it out of the park in basketball also. So she
Yeah.
kind of had to really dig in and get this right.
I will say I'm happy with both of those hires, and
Yeah.
I'm really excited to see them on the field this year, because it kind of gives them a little bit of new juice. I mean, the basketball program had gotten a little stale. We needed something new. You know, the pack line kind of slowed down offense, was making us be ridiculed in the public, and we just needed
Well,
something
it wasn't
new.
that. It was hurting our recruiting.
For
We
sure.
started to suffer in recruiting for the first time, really.
And I don't necessarily think O'Connor to Pollard is an upgrade, but my point is that he's about as good a fill-in as you're going to get for a guy who's a Hall of Fame coach. So another cool stat here: there's only 9 schools in Division I that have been ranked AP #1 in men's football, men's basketball, and women's basketball. All 3 of those. And of course, you see UNC on there, Notre Dame, you see Purdue, Texas, and you see University of Virginia Cavaliers, which I was really happy to see that. What do you think about us being in this rare company of schools that have achieved those 3 #1 ranks?
It's nice to see. Obviously, those are really good sports programs. So anytime you're mentioned in there with them, that's a good thing. I liked it. I liked seeing that.
When I saw that come out, and you have this kind of athletic department that's a little bit on its knees right now, this is the type of pub you need for recruits to see that basically we're one of the big brands.
Yeah.
So I was definitely happy to see that, and this is impressive for these 9 schools for sure. So some other news: here's the last 30 Stanley Cup champions. 4 out of the last 6 from Florida, and I noticed that one of the other ones in the last 6 was Vegas. And what I see is this interesting trend, Robbie, that it used to be in the old days that all the champions were out of really cold climates, the Oilers and the New York Islanders and the Pittsburgh Penguins. And as we've progressed in hockey, more and more of these teams have started to be in warm weather climates. So why do you think that is? Why do you think that Florida and Vegas and other teams like that are starting to dominate?
I don't think it's a hard sell to get players there,
Is it because of
no
the
state
tax
income
situation?
tax.
That's what I think. I think it's
whether it's the warm weather, your family would love to be there. I think it's not a hard sell.
Oh, you want me to play in Vegas? Okay. Oh, you want me to play in Tampa? Sure. Yeah.
Right. Exactly right.
And I think the tax situation has something to do with it.
Yeah, it sure does.
So, you think this trend's going to continue? The warm weather cities?
Yeah, why not?
Mm-hmm.
It's not going to magically, I've got to play in Vancouver or something.
Mm-hmm. Interesting that you had a couple of dynasties happen in the last decade. Pittsburgh, Tampa Bay Lightning, and Florida Panthers. You had 3 different dynasties in one decade. So interesting. So this was pretty interesting. Lenoris Sellers staying put in South Carolina. He had been recruited by several big schools, Michigan and a couple of others, to come play for $8 million a year. $8 million a year in college. And apparently his father stepped in and said, "You're 19, you don't need $8 million. You should stay in South Carolina." And he's making $2 million at South Carolina, so he's not exactly broke. What do you think about this? A father stepping in and basically, trying to instill some old school values in the kid and say, "Hey,
yeah, look, I love that part of it."
Me too.
I think
stay loyal.
Stay loyal, stay with your plan. don't just drop everything for the next payday.
He's still getting
And
paid, you know.
yeah, maybe you really like South Carolina, and his dad knows that and says you made a commitment, you stay with it.
I like that he said you're 19, you don't need 8 million. That kind of feels like he's trying to keep the kid on the straight and narrow,
Yeah.
not get off track.
Yep.
No. Yeah, I really like that. I hope that happens more. I'm not sure that it will. I think people are going to keep chasing money, but I like that happened.
Yeah, I like
This
that's
was
possible.
interesting. If you look at the best regular season records over the last 25 years since 2000, okay, so essentially these are the 5 franchises in the NFL that are the most consistent. Number 1 is the Patriots, 2 is the Steelers, 3 is the Packers, 4 is the Ravens, and 5 is the Eagles. And of course, the most titles in that group is the Patriots with 6. So, thoughts about how consistent these 5 franchises have been and are kind of like the model for the NFL.
Yeah, I mean, they're incredible. The way they run their front office has been consistently good. The Patriots have suffered lately, but they were consistently good. They have a lot of consistency with their coaching staffs. If you look at that, there's not a lot of turnover. And they get the quarterback position right. And then they bring in lots of weapons around them. And
Yeah,
yeah, all these teams are doing it the right way.
it's impressive to see. I mean, if you had looked at this chart in the 80s or 90s, it would have been, Cowboys, Redskins,
Yeah.
Dolphins, but it's interesting to look back at really the last 25 years to see the teams that have been consistently good every single year. And of course, Mike Tomlin has never had a losing record, so
Yeah.
shouldn't surprise anybody. The Steelers are up there. So really interesting to see who the model franchises are. So this is interesting. LeBron James apparently mulled retirement in the offseason, and his kids supported him in playing another year and basically said, "You've been here for us the whole time. We give you our support. If you want to continue playing, go for it."
Right.
So obviously his kids must have been a big part of this kind of retirement or play type decision
Yeah, for sure.
before he opted in.
I
So
think
another,
just, you play as long as you can.
yeah,
And,
yeah, that's
and
right.
then
And as long as you want to, he doesn't
as
need
long
to.
as you want to, and then you pull the plug when it doesn't feel right anymore.
You're talking about a billionaire playing basketball.
Right.
This was interesting. The last 2 games Caitlin Clark has played, she dropped 52 points, 9 rebounds, 15 assists, and 11 made threes. And this is coming off an injury. Nobody in WNBA history has reached these marks in a 2-game span. So is she really becoming the face of the WNBA? And
I think she has to be, yeah.
and why are the other players shunning her so much? It's really
Because
like
they don't feel like she's earned it yet. And some of the old guard are having trouble letting go and realizing that she's earned it quickly,
what
a
was
little
interesting is
jealousy and a little sort of not appreciating that somebody arrives and then now you're getting private jets to locations and stuff.
what's interesting is Caitlin Clark and the Indiana Fever get 2 million watchers per game on TV. And when she's out with injury, it drops by 45%.
Yeah,
Like she has such a marked impact on the entire WNBA.
that's right. That's
It
why she
really
has
does.
value.
And so I don't understand why the other players don't see that. Like it's almost like they're jealous of her, especially Angel Reese, who seems to be incredibly jealous of her. And
Yeah.
a lot of players are not, giving her the cred that she needs to bring the light to the WNBA that they need.
Yeah, I
So
agree with that. I think they should appreciate more what she's doing and they're beneficiaries of it.
it's unfortunate. It really is unfortunate that they feel that way.
Yeah.
So another big story just happened 2 weeks ago. The Buss family has sold the Lakers for $10 billion. $10 billion. The Celtics were sold for 6 2 years ago. It went up another 40%. This owner is the owner of the Los Angeles Dodgers, so he's an LA man. He's very wealthy. He's made it clear through his GM and other front office personnel that they don't believe the Lakers are a championship contender right now, even with Luka and LeBron on the team.
Yeah.
So that's why you have all the rumors about LeBron going to the Mavericks, which I think would be really ironic that that's where Luka came from. So,
Yeah.
thoughts about the Lakers being sold? This iconic franchise had been in the Buss family for 46 years. And thoughts about this valuation that these teams are getting. I mean, they're getting more than NFL teams, which is crazy.
Yeah. I don't really know how you evaluate a team. I know that a lot of things go into it, TV contracts and branding and all this stuff. So I think the market usually gets it right. So I tip my hat to the Lakers for having the high level of value. And imagine if they were winning a lot, but
Mm-hmm.
they represent a lot of stars, celebrities, um, a culture, a part of the culture that believes in entertainment very, very strongly.
Mm-hmm. That's right.
So,
I think this is a big deal. I mean, obviously they've set the mark for what a NBA franchise can be sold for now, 40% above what the Celtics were sold for 2 years
yeah,
ago,
I
and
know that
40% above what the Commanders just sold for, which is
they made Mark Cuban say he wished he had hung on.
that's right. He sold for 3.5 if he just held on for 2 more years.
Yeah,
But this will be interesting to see where they go because I do believe he's more of a businessman than the Buss family. They said the Buss family felt like a small family shop running
yeah,
this big organization. He's going
yeah,
to do a lot of things, I think, to make the Lakers even more valuable over time. But in the meantime, he's got to try to find a way to get the Lakers back to a championship level, which they're not at right now. So,
yeah. I think you're looking at a rebuild that's going to be painful, and
and they're going to do it
in that
around Luka,
context, I think LeBron leaving might make sense. You can get some assets.
and they're going to build around Luka. He's going to be the new centerpiece. He's only
Yeah,
26.
yeah,
So last one here. This was the potential Giannis trade, which didn't happen. The Spurs were asking about Giannis, and the Milwaukee Bucks wanted all these players: Castle, Vassell, Sochan, the 2025 #2 overall pick. They wanted the first round picks the Hawks had traded to them, which was 2 of them, and then he won 5 additional picks. So they wanted 8 #1 picks plus 3 players
no,
for Giannis.
that's
8
crazy.
#1 picks. So what is your thought about
Too
the
much.
asking price? And do you think the Bucks really wanted to trade him? I don't think so when you ask for that much.
No, they didn't. But
Yeah.
I'll tell you, you can overpay for a player, obviously, and I think that that's overpaying.
8 #1 picks.
Yeah. Uh,
Goodness, man.
that's ridiculous.
I could not believe that when I saw what the offer was that they wanted from the Spurs. Obviously, the Spurs did not do the deal. Drop us a comment, guys, what you think of that demand. It's pretty amazing.
Yeah.
Some other ones here. Otani, the big, long-awaited return. What is your thought about the impact of Otani as a two-way player versus just a hitter? Do you think that
Let him be special.
is it good
Let him
for
do
him? Is it
special
good for
things.
baseball? Yeah.
It's great for baseball. You can do all these parallels to Babe Ruth. There's not much else you can parallel to him
Is it
to.
good for him too, though?
I don't know. I mean, I know the pitching coaches know what his motion is doing to his shoulders and things like that, and his elbow, but I think he's okay. Like I think he's trained for this and he's got the muscle mass in the right spots and he definitely has he's got a really good motion.
Mm-hmm.
So I think he can do it.
Mm-hmm. This is huge for baseball, 100%. It's huge for the Dodgers. It creates a great story of the comeback story for Otani from the injury. I do wonder if it's going to hurt his hitting at all. It hasn't yet this year. It's
Maybe.
been hitting really well, but we'll see. We'll see if it affects him at all. If he only pitches every 5 days, it probably won't have a huge impact. exciting to see him back. This was pretty cool. College Game Day will be at Ohio State, Texas for Lee Corso's final show this year.
Be a
And
great game.
what a gem he has been to the sport, to College Game Day, to TV, to the interest in college football. You know, putting on the heads at the end, his unique style, the way he picks teams. What's your thought about Corso, his legacy, College Game Day, how they're going to really send him out this year?
Not so fast, my friends. I think he's been good. Like, he's been a very excellent broadcaster, very knowledgeable, added a lot of personality. He really helped build up the juice before games.
You
And
know,
hype it up.
I never missed that show. I never missed that show. It's a great show.
Yeah, he was the reason why the hype was there, and then that created a lot of juice for the games themselves. And it was.
Did you
he had
see
a lot to do with it.
they've added Pat McAfee to try to be that
Yeah,
kind of exciting guy on set?
yeah, he would do kind of the same things.
So do you think McAfee can carry this same excitement that Lee Corso
I
provided?
do. I think McAfee kind of specializes in that too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
We're going to miss Corso. He's been fantastic for the game, and I'll definitely be watching this year as he does his send-off. So it'll be fun.
It's hard to watch him now, though. I mean, I think he's deteriorated to a point where it's hard.
He should have retired a year or two ago.
Yeah, I think it's time. This is the right time.
Yeah. So this is pretty interesting. The pickleball skills pyramid, if you look at the different levels and the percentage of players at each one, you only have 1% of the players at the pro level, 4% at 4.5, 10% at 4, 15% at 3.5, which is where I am right now. Then you have 50% of the people in that high intermediate level, kind of 2.5 to 3.5 area. So what is your thought about this?
It seems right to me.
Does this surprise you?
No, I think that seems right to me. There's a lot of new players. That means the spectrum's going to be pretty heavy at the bottom.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people are just weekend warriors, only get to play occasionally.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that looks about right.
Yeah. I'm sitting at that in between the high intermediate and the advanced right now. I haven't played 3 years, but I don't think I'll really advance beyond that because I just don't play enough. I don't get to play more than once or twice a week. So you really have to play almost every day to be up on those top echelons. That was really interesting to see how the levels are broken down. This was pretty cool. Out of the 30 fastest 100-meter sprint times ever recorded, only 9 were achieved by an athlete who never failed a drug test. All 9 belong to Usain Bolt. All 9. So do you think we appreciated this guy enough? Like how unbelievably incredible he was, winning going away in 100?
I don't think we did. I
don't think we appreciated it.
Special.
He was so special to watch. Like everyone would watch this guy.
Yeah.
Just a unique athlete you don't see very often.
Yeah, he was strong mentally. Yeah.
I thought that was really cool to see that he owns all those records. That's cool. So I'm a big fan.
Mm-hmm.
This was pretty cool. Think about Ohio State. They went from Michael Thomas to Terry McLaurin to Chris Olave to Garrett Wilson to Jackson Smith and Jigba to Marvin Harrison Jr. to Emeka Egbuka to Jeremiah Smith. I mean, Robbie, it's just a wide receiver factory, right?
Yeah.
Has anybody else had that before? That's crazy.
Well, I think LSU has an even better claim, but they're in a really close second situation.
I mean, they basically never know what it's like to not have a number 1 receiver on their roster.
Yeah.
And Jeremiah Smith might be one of the best of all of them.
Yeah.
Crazy.
Sure looks that way right now.
Total wide receiver You're right. LSU would be the other one for sure.
Yeah.
But no other program close, they say here. This is the potential offense after all the offseason acquisitions by the Steelers, who had been getting tired of their reputation of having no offense the last couple of years. So they've added all these guys. You got DK Metcalf, Robert Woods on the outside, Caleb Johnson, Jalen Warren are your running backs. And at tight end, of course, hurts me to say this, but Jonnu Smith and Freiermuth, 2 really good tight ends, with Aaron Rodgers dealing the ball. So what do you think about this offense? Is this going to be much improved?
It should be improved. Yes.
And some people believe that Pickens was just a distraction in the locker room.
Yeah.
Very talented player, but he just had a lot of problems.
Yeah, he kind of reminded me of Antonio Brown.
Yeah.
Yeah. He kind of
This is
reminded
going
me
to
of him.
be this is going to be a solid offense.
Yeah,
I
I think so.
believe that.
They brought in talent. You've got DK Metcalf is motivated. He's going to want to show a lot. Robert Woods is talented, and Aaron Rodgers is great at delivering the ball. So they have nice tight ends and a lot of weapons.
Man, why didn't they keep Jonnu in Miami? He was their best player.
I don't know.
What are they doing?
It's the worst.
So this will be an exciting offense to watch. I don't think they're going to be as good as the Chiefs. I don't think they're going to be as good as the
No.
Bills.
Mm-mm.
I don't think they're going to be as good as the Ravens, but definitely improved. They're not going to be getting the 15 points a game anymore. This is interesting. I'll never understand how Cal Ripken played 2,632 games in a row. That will forever be the most underrated stat ever in sports.
Yeah.
I mean, are you still like me, where you're still digesting how incredible it is that you don't miss a game for 24 years?
Yeah. I
It
mean,
just
he
doesn't make
played
sense.
hurt a lot.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean,
No load
especially
management or
when
anything.
you're talking about 162 games in each of those seasons.
Yeah.
Incredible. Incredible. I mean, I know they made a big deal of it at the time, but I do agree with Isaac. I think that thinking about that record is just incredible still.
Mm.
So Ty Jerome signs a 3-year deal with the Memphis Grizzlies to go play with Zach Edey. He did get $28 million, which is pretty cool. And he actually has a player option in year 3, which is pretty cool. So he's definitely been rewarded by his great year in Cleveland, although he was very mixed emotions about leaving. You think this is a good move for Ty? He's going to basically get a lot of playing time. He'll be one of the guys in Memphis.
I think it's a win-win. I think Cleveland got better. Ty Jerome got his contract, and Memphis is going to be better for it. So I think this is a good situation.
Mm-hmm. He did seem to be a really good fit with Cleveland, so we'll see. We'll see if it's as good a fit with Memphis. Hopefully it is.
Yeah.
Steelers trade Micah Fitzpatrick and acquire Jalen Ramsey and Jonnu Smith. We mentioned this a little bit, but I haven't gotten your take yet, Robbie. What you think of this trade? Who you think came out on the better end of it?
I think Miami did okay. Getting Minka back. He used to be there.
Mm-hmm.
And
Jalen Ramsey, he was kind of wearing thin a little bit, I think.
Kind of a distraction.
Yeah.
So.
I wish it was just Minka for Jalen. I really hate that.
Me too. Me too.
So I don't know. I'm not sure who won this trade. We're going to find out this season. I'm getting a sinking feeling that Steelers won this trade, but
I read the headlines where it was the largest trade in NFL history.
Oh, okay.
Oh. Yeah. So many expensive players moved around at the same time.
Interesting.
Yeah.
We're going to be watching that trade to see who won it. And then, of course, after that trade, the Dolphins go out and bring Darren Waller out of retirement. He had actually retired in the offseason.
Yeah.
But they still had to trade for him because his rights are still owned by another club. So they gave up a 6th-round pick for Darren Waller to take over for Jonnu Smith.
I like it.
You think he's going to be productive? You think he's going to be able to come out of retirement and be good? Okay. We'll see. Had a decent year with New York last year.
Yeah, it was okay.
I'm hopeful that he's going to be able to round himself into shape, have a good year. This was bonkers to see the 2-year deal that Ronaldo just signed with his Saudi club that was even twice as big as what he had before. He's now going to make $440 million this year in one season.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Just salary.
I don't know how they do that.
Whereas he's making 3 times more than LeBron James, who's making a boatload of money in endorsements and salary.
Yeah.
Any thoughts about how this could revolutionize soccer? Like,
I don't think it can be sustained.
I mean, Messi's making $60 million. We thought that was a lot in MLS.
Yeah, he's a part owner.
Yeah. I just could not believe that. What an eye-popping number that is. 440 for one season.
Yeah, it's absurd.
All right, guys, here's our two-part question for the week. Please drop us a comment on both. And I'm going to ask Robbie first. Will LeBron James play for the Lakers or another team in 2025-26? And here's the headline: Mavericks tabbed as ideal landing spot for LeBron James. So, Robbie?
I think he's staying in LA.
You do?
Mm-hmm.
You don't think they're going to be working out all the logistics and details?
I think they're going to fall short in making it happen. There's going to be a lot of will on both sides, but I think nobody really wants to see him leave, and I don't think he really wants to leave.
I think with the signing of DeAndre Ayton as a new center for them, I think also that he's going to spend his last year in Los Angeles. I agree with you. This is an interesting kind of rumor kind of thing, but in the end, I think he stays in Los Angeles.
Yeah.
You guys drop us a
I
comment.
wouldn't be shocked if he went.
I wouldn't be shocked either because it's definitely out there. And he knows he's not going to win a ring in Los Angeles, likely.
Yeah.
So second question is, which team is the best in MLB at the All-Star break? And these are the 6 teams that are leading their divisions. So you got Dodgers, Cubs, Phillies on the National League side, and then Toronto, Detroit, Houston on the American League side. So drop us a comment what you guys think. Robbie?
I don't know. It's got to be Dodgers, Detroit, or Houston. I'm thinking Detroit.
I like the Dodgers. I think that they're the best organization.
I do
They're
too.
the deepest
They're the best
roster.
runner over a long haul. The
They're
Dodgers
running
are
the
the best.
So, matter of fact, I could see them winning it again this year.
Yeah.
So I think they're the best team at the All-Star break. But I will say all 6 of these teams are going to make some noise in the playoffs. They're all playing really well. Phillies are playing really well. Cubs are playing out of their minds.
I think Detroit is a very scary team.
Detroit's very scary, and they have very low payroll, so they have kind of a chip on their shoulder. So,
yeah,
this is it's going to be fun to watch. I'm not sure Toronto's going to, in the end up winning that division. They'll probably make a wild card, but
yeah,
I like the Dodgers. So, drop us a comment, guys.
Yeah.
I'm going to hand it over to Robbie with the news and mailbag segment.
Okay, so there's that silly picture of me looking off on the ski slope at the Lillehammer ski jump.
Tell the people who haven't seen our Norway photos yet, kind of a little bit of set up the context of that.
Yeah, so we walked all the way to the top through a massive amount of stairs, and then we came back down, and my legs were shaking in this photo. That was a lot of fun. And then in the lower left, you see us mounting up to get in basically it's a bobsled that goes down the bobsled track, and it's got wheels, and it goes 75 miles an hour. There were 2 different turns that we took. It went fast. There were 2 different turns where my head was pinned to the floor until we got through the turn.
Yeah,
I felt like Tom Cruise in Top Gun or something.
It's funny, when I did that same pose that you're doing there, I did more of the serious, like acting like a skier kind of thing. Yours is really funny. Looking off. So. And then I picked a picture of you out of our basketball episode that I thought was kind of funny. Yeah, looking off.
Cool. All right, well, let's do it. Mailbag. So pumped you put out another part in this series at DP Coaching Channel. This was talking about the Strange Sports that we just released. Part 4, was it? Part 4?
Yeah, part 4. That's awesome. Yeah, thanks for the comment.
Yeah, I would love for everyone to go out there and check out that episode. We had a good time doing that one. So anyway, thanks, DP Coaching Channel. And have a great trip at Diana Rose. So that was obviously when we posted our last weekend update from Norway.
Yeah.
She was telling us to have a good trip, and we sure did. So that was cool.
That was really interesting to try to have this show from a hotel. It's something we had never done before. So that was an interesting experience.
Yeah, it was. Trying to get our notes together and track some of the games we weren't able to watch. It was pretty wild. We appreciated being able to get back to the U.S. for doing
And
our episodes. That's for sure.
and Bergen's such a beautiful city, but we had been so beaten down by rain that we were just
Yeah.
kind of tired. So we were doing our best.
Yeah. All right. You guys always keep it real. Great episode at Liam, Amateur Sports.
Oh, thanks, Liam. Fantastic comment. We appreciate it.
We try to keep it real.
No doubt.
We really just tell you like what we think, not what you want to hear. And if it comes out authentic, hopefully it should, because we're just telling you what our thoughts are on any given topic and what we think is important. So hopefully that comes across. Last one, episode 64 was packed with knowledge and energy. That was from Nishanuru, and that was our special teams episode. So that was episode 64. It was packed with knowledge and energy.
That's awesome. That was a great episode. We really enjoyed all three guests and enjoyed having
Yeah.
Brad on. And it was a lot of fun. And I really appreciate your comment and glad you enjoyed it.
It was really fun for me because I came in late that night. We had to go forward with the guests without me because they had to get up at 4 a.m. and go running with their team. So you guys did a good job of getting that off and running, and I got to go back afterward and kind of catch up on the episode
Right.
after jumping in halfway through. So that was fun for me to try and jump in, try and be nimble.
That was a great episode. We had actually talked to Brad and Jackson a year earlier about doing a special teams episode because special teams never gets any cred.
Yeah,
And
what
so,
I liked about that was there was a little bit of a shift in Jackson, who was a huge proponent of NIL and transfer portal, and it seemed like he was watching a lot more people just leaving for money. And I felt like he had really kind of changed his tune, that the majority leave for playing time. Now it's more of a mix of reasons.
And you can tell he's settled into the right spot at that school because he's feeling a lot more loyalty now. So it was good to see.
Yeah. Yep.
Yep.
He's part of the whole plan. So, and that is it.
Well, it was a good mailbag, Robbie. And
Thanks.
a lot of good stuff happening in sports, really exciting. NBA draft and offseason moves are really coming to a close pretty soon. You got just the LeBron James thing out there.
Baseball's getting just more interesting,
Yep. All-Star game coming up shortly. And then you have the second half of the year when all the stretch runs happen. So all the soccer tournaments are all finishing up, and we're going to be kind of in a little bit of a dead zone here in the next month. So we have some fun programs planned for you to fill that void until we get into NFL training camps. So
that's right.
Anything else you're looking forward to? We got 1 week left in our sabbaticals, you and me, and then we're back to the working world.
Just get back to the beach one more time. No, not really anything in particular. I'm very interested in the baseball to see kind of how this plays out. Summer G League is going. It's interesting to see who's gonna make a roster in basketball, and a lot of NFL news considering we're in the dead zone right now. It seems like every couple days something big's happening. So it's still a good time of year.
And baseball is doing a better job marketing its stars.
Yeah.
Putting the primetime teams on primetime. There was a couple years there I wasn't really enjoying watching baseball until the playoffs. Of course, playoffs are awesome, but I've watched a couple games recently. I watched the Orioles-Braves the other night when the Orioles won 7-3.
Yeah,
it was a really exciting game. Like I think they've done enough tweaks to the game.
I think you're right that I end up watching more baseball now than I did 5 years ago. I'm more inclined to sit down and watch a regular season game as opposed to, 5 years ago, they just didn't matter. There's so many games and they weren't that exciting. And there's more compelling storylines now. So,
of course, your boys' love for baseball doesn't hurt, right?
Yeah, that's right.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Well, guys, like this video and subscribe to the channel. We can't thank you enough for how awesome the following has been from you guys, all the comments, all the subscribers. We're heading towards 34,000 now. And again, just can't thank you guys enough. So
we're
appreciate it so much.
Happy. We're so happy to hear from everybody out there, to watch the the growth of the channel. We're having a good time. Hopefully you are too. We can add a little, interesting sports perspectives into your lives. And thanks for hanging with us and joining us. And we'd love to hear from you.
And look out for a couple days from now, end of this week, we're going to be coming out with our full Norway podcast about the whole trip. So look out for that.
Yeah.
We'll talk to you guys next time on Sports Guyz. Have a good one.
Thanks. See you.
Check out